Deputy, 4 minutes.
Thank you, Alaska and Corla, and thank you for picking this topical issue today. I'm a little bit disappointed that Minister Quinn couldn't be here himself, but I see from the monitor that he is addressing the other House. Minister of State, you're very welcome. I want to talk about the school book rental scheme and the funding that is available to schools to set one up and to keep them going as well. The recent budget announcement of €15 million over the next 3 years for new schemes is a very positive measure. It's the equivalent of about €100 for every pupil that takes part. We all know how expensive buying school books can be, and it's particularly expensive if you've got 2 or 3 children going to school at the same time. It can cost up to €100 per year per child to get books for the school year, and of course that doesn't include the cost of uniforms, of shoes, of sports equipment and the other stuff that you need on a daily basis when you're at school. So a school book rental scheme can help parents because it reduces the costs. In addition to the money that the school book rental scheme gets from the government, parents on average pay about €40 per year per child to take part in the scheme. So an average family will save about €60 per year per child through taking part in this scheme. It's very good news for hard-pressed families out there. So if a school has no scheme currently, they can apply for funding to help one set up. That's all really good news, and we all welcome that, Minister. The problem is that funding isn't available for schools that have already set up a scheme in the past. So a school could have a scheme that only operates for half the classes in the school, or is running on shoestring budget, and they can't get extra funding. I'll give you a couple of examples. Gael Scull na Mee in Ashbourne, they set up a scheme in 2011 through parents' donations, and now they can't get access to this new funding, and they're extremely worried that this will mean that they either have to stop the scheme that they have or take funding from another part of the school budget, a part of the school budget that's currently under pressure. St Patrick's School in Stamullen, they set up a scheme last year, and because they had a limited amount of money that they raised from parents, they only set up the scheme for kids who are in junior infants up to 4th class. So there's no scheme in operation for kids in 5th class or 6th class. And when they heard the announcement, they wrote to me and they said that, and I'm going to quote, they said, "It was great to hear that additional funding has been allocated to establish a school book rental scheme in budget 2014. But now I learned that Stamullen isn't acceptable as this. As a result, I now feel that I've actually hurt the school by putting in so much work last year and making the school ineligible to apply for additional funding, even though we've only a partial scheme set up covering the years junior infants to 4th years. We would have all been better off now if we'd done nothing at all last year." That's the feeling that's out there. People are thinking they went out, they tried to better their communities, to better their kids' education, and they get, as a result, they get no reward at all for it. So, Minister, I'm asking you, what can we do to help schools like the ones in Ashbourne and Stamullen who have half schemes or who are running schemes on very, very tight budget? And I'm wondering, can the department look at the possibility of extra funding being put into schemes such as these? Thank you.
I want to thank Deputy Hannigan for raising the issue and welcome the opportunity to clarify the position. Both Minister Quinn and I are very conscious that the cost of textbooks is a considerable burden on families, and we believe that participation in book rental schemes offers the best opportunity to reduce that burden. And schools which already have rental schemes can save parents up to 80% of the cost of buying new books. And since his appointment, Minister Quinn has attempted to take steps to increase participation across the whole country in book rental schemes. In January of 2013, the Minister launched the guidelines for developing textbook rental schemes in schools. And these guidelines provide very practical advice to primary and post-primary schools on how rental schemes can be established and operated. And the aim of the guidelines is to help as many schools as possible to start their book rental programmes. The publication of the guidelines followed a survey of schools by the department in 2011, and this had a 99% response rate at primary level and showed that 76% of primary schools already operate a book rental scheme. I believe that these results show that we have a very, very good foundation to build on across the country, especially at primary level, and we can achieve a position where every primary school has a book rental scheme in operation in the 2014-2015 school year. Budget 2014, as already indicated by Deputy Hannigan, provided additional funding which will involve an investment of €15 million to support the establishment of book rental schemes in primary schools that don't currently operate them, and the Department will provide €5 million in seed capital per annum over a 3-year period to those schools. The Department is also going to continue to provide a book grant as usual to all primary schools. This grant can be utilised for the purposes of updating or expanding a school's existing book rental scheme. I want to commend the schools that have used the book grant to help build up book rental schemes over the years. Their efforts mean that the high costs of books is being significantly reduced for parents, and at Minister Quinn's request, the National Parents Council surveyed the views of their members in relation to currently operating book rental schemes, and parents have reported that where book rental schemes operate, they are open to all parents in 95% of cases, and that the cost per child is under €40 per year in a considerable majority of schools. And perhaps most tellingly, the survey has found that 93% of parents believe that book rental schemes help with the cost of educating their children. Ensuring that book rental schemes are available to all parents, not just some, but to all, must therefore be clearly our aim. I understand that it feels unfair to those schools who have invested time and energy and money to establish such schemes, and that they can now not benefit from the additional funding which was secured as part of the budget. And it is unfair, but equally so, the status quo was deeply unfair on many parents. Parents without access. Yes, it is unfair, absolutely. But equally so, the status quo was deeply unfair on the many parents who had no access whatsoever to book rental schemes and that needed support in establishing them, and that's what the measure is setting out to do.
Sure, you have 2 minutes, Deputy.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your honesty there and for your response. I agree with you that this is a very, very good scheme, but I also agree with you that the way that it's applied is unfair, and I'm very disappointed with the tenet of the response, I have to say. We're all in politics because we believe it to be in the interests of people to work on their behalf. Politics is the art of the possible, and I can't believe that if we've got a scheme here that your own department says is unfair, I can't believe that we can't go away and look again and try to make it fair. So I'm going to urge you, Minister, I thank you for your response today. I realise that this has probably landed on your desk very recently, and it's not something you may have been aware of in the past, but I will ask you to go away and bearing in mind that you agree with me that the current situation is unfair on schools such as the one I named, St Pat's in Stamullen and the Gael School in Ashburn. I wonder if you could look again at this. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. Unusually so, perhaps unusually so, I'm more than aware of this particular issue because I have discussed it at length with Minister Quinn. Minister Quinn and I answered several questions relating to the operation of the scheme in the Dáil quite recently, and we did both point out that it was unfair, but in the context of the resources that are available to us, it is the most that can be done at this point in time. There is no question but that if more resources were available to us within government and indeed within the department, we would have extended this support to beyond those schools who didn't have a scheme in place already. What we're trying to do here, to a certain extent, with the limited resources that are available, is to level the playing field, to bring in all those final schools which have no scheme whatsoever in operation, and to get them and support them in putting that scheme in operation. We would hope that in the future, when we do have more resources available to us, and let's hope that we have, that we will be able to go back and then support those schools who took the initiative and made the commitment and the effort to put in place some kind of a scheme. But for the moment, an unfair decision, but the best possible decision in light of the resources that are available to us. It was perhaps even more so unfair to parents who had no access whatsoever to any book rental scheme, and it was those at this point in time that we sought to support. We're hopeful we can support all the others in the future when resources become available.
Sure. Thank you.